Hello, welcome to the Can't Blue Podcast post-match reaction. I'm Dan Rolinson, joined by Frankie Maguire from the All Villa No Filler podcast to talk about a draw in the end against Bournemouth. I was expecting this to go another way until Ollie Watkins put a brilliant header into the back of the net in the 90th minute. Frankie, how are you, mate?
Wow, stressed out. I think I've lost years of my life, and I feel like that happens every single time I watch Villa play away from home nowadays. It's just second game in a row away in the Premier League where it's just been an absolutely wild affair. Mad game.
Yeah, very chaotic. I think even the first half had a bit of everything, didn't it? Disallowed goals, should have been sending offs with Semedo should have had a second yellow, I think. Plenty of goals, all pretty good quality goals as well, even from Bournemouth side. I thought Solanke's was a nice finish, little turn and finish, and Bailey's very good. And Watkins, which we'll get onto later, is a brilliant header. It really, really is. Let's do this chronologically though, and go with team news first of all, like we always used to. Ollie Watkins started in the end. There was a bit of a debate whether he would be available or not. No Diaby, Konsa at right back are the three that I've picked out. Obviously no Kamara, but that was due to suspension. What do you make of the Konsa right back experiment, let's say? Because I get why we do it. I get why Unai Emery wants to do that. But Ezri Konsa is a better centre half than he is a right back. He's a better centre half than Diego Carlos is, a centre half. I feel like we're wasting him playing at right back.
I don't love it. I don't love him at right back. He can do it. He's a solid player, stand up to a player one-on-one. But I think, I don't know, I just don't love it. I think he's just a better centre back than, and I think he's, on the right hand side of our back four, he's the best one to go there. And I guess, I mean, whether Emery, with the sheer volume of games, he's trying to sort of, get balance out the minutes that people are playing. Konsa coming off today with 30 to go, Cash not always playing all the time, Carlos getting minutes. Maybe there's some thinking behind that, but I do think that on the right back, I think that's an area where I think Monchi might be looking going ahead, just because I think, I like Cash, I like, Konsa can play out there, but it's just an area where you feel like there's not huge depth compared to, say, the left-hand side when you've got Moreno and Dean. There's two like out-and-out left backs who can get forward. And on the right, I think there's occasions where, sometimes we play against a low block, and Cash isn't always brilliant at breaking past her, beating a man one-on-one. So, yeah, 2 weeks in a row where I've not loved seeing Konsa at right back, though I do wonder whether it's just maybe to balance up some of the minutes at times. And I think, on occasion in the first half as well, it felt like there were occasions where the ball would come out to the Bournemouth left where Semenyo was, and obviously that was Konsa's side, and we'd always be dragged in quite narrow. And it felt like there were occasions where Bournemouth had acres and acres of space in there. So I don't know. It's not an experiment I love, but I can kind of see why Emery's doing it.
Yeah, it feels a little bit out of necessity, doesn't it, at the moment, that he doesn't, I don't want to say he doesn't trust Matty Cash because he's played him further forward and he's the right back, isn't he? He's the only natural right back in the squad, and Cash is going to play his fair share of minutes. Just doesn't fill me with massive confidence seeing Konsa out on that side. As much as he's a great player, he's better in the middle, and he's our best defender in terms of like the tackling side of the game. I know Pau Torres is also a very good defender, but he's better attributes on the ball. Konsa is that slide tackle, just as one individual moment, is, I think Lee Hendry called it McGrath-esque on the commentary, and some people heard that as Maguire-esque, but he certainly said McGrath. Things like that.
It's always been my dream to hear something positive described as Maguire-esque, given that is my surname, but no, it isn't.
Of course, yeah, of course. Not much good press is there for the Maguire name on social media in football terms, apart from your podcast, of course. It just doesn't quite. Yeah, I don't like it like you. There's times where there's a need for it, and I think if we could click our fingers and Emery could find his equivalent of Alex Moreno on the right hand side, I think we probably would do that. So maybe something we'll see in January. If not, I think in the summer is the time maybe to do that. But I don't want to spend the first 3 or 4 minutes of this podcast talking about replacing Matty Cash, because that's not really the point. The point that we got in the end, I was fully expecting to come on here and talk about another defeat against Bournemouth at their place, a ground that I just don't like. No one likes it. That goal from Ollie Watkins is the moment. Just talk me through that. That is an elite level header, I think.
What an absolutely unbelievable header. And I'm only just getting my voice back from screaming when it hit the back of the net. It just, there's been questions about Watkins in the past. Is he a natural finisher? Is he good enough to play for England? And all? You score goals like that, you're good enough to play for anybody, it feels like, that just. And, again, it was a game where he wasn't necessarily massively involved, although I think he made a lot of runs that weren't picked up on. There were one or two occasions where he did some nice touches on, like when Duran hit the post, that was from Watkins putting it around the corner to him. Good link-up play between the strikers. But just from the start with that goal, Pau Torres, Torres hit a few great passes today, to be honest. Again, I think it was him who hit it out to Moussa Diaby. Could be wrong, could be in Douglas Luiz, but I think it was Torres out to Diaby. And Diaby, we haven't seen him play out on the right yet for Villa. Today was the first time I think we've seen it. He's generally always been the second striker, and obviously he was a right winger. Cutting back side, fantastic cross from Diaby, and
really good.
But for Watkins to sort of step back, hit it off the sort of the back of his head right into the back corner, at the bottom corner of the net. I mean, it's an absolutely fantastic goal. It really is from a player who right now is behind Harry Kane is England's main striker really, and every week you see him, his confidence just grows, and you just always when it turned out he was fit today, just a collective sigh of relief from Aston Villa. I could hear it. I'm down in London. I could hear it all the way from Birmingham. That relief knowing that he's playing, because what he offers, all-round game and finishing like that, it was got us out of a hole. It really did, because we had to absolutely not lose today, given the games we have coming up in this week.
Yeah, there's a comment earlier on saying that you can't be dropping points to teams like this if we want to finish in the top 4, top 5, and I agree to an extent in that game in isolation. But if you flip the results of Spurs and Bournemouth, and we'd have drawn last week against Spurs and won today, we'd have been going, we're on a roll here. That's decent. A point at Spurs and a win at Bournemouth, happy days. It's still 4 points, isn't it? Newcastle lost to Bournemouth at Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago, and that's not going to derail their season. I mean, they're 3 points behind us now, Newcastle. So, yeah, obviously it's disappointing not to win, but that game can go two ways very differently. That Martinez keeps us in it a couple of times with 2 really, really good saves at close range, world-class saves. I know that you kind of got the argument that we went straight at him, but you still got to save it. Some keepers don't save those ones. Flip side of that, though, Alfie says we had the goal ruled out offside for Diego Carlos. They should have had a second yellow and a sending off, and Duran hit the post. If those things go the other way, Villa do win the game. So it's just a really chaotic game full of different little moments that could have gone either way. And fortunately, we feel on the more positive side of it by getting a point out of it at the end. And it kind of feels like a win, doesn't it? Whereas Bournemouth will be really disappointed with that.
Yeah, definitely an absolutely chaotic game. I think in full credit to Bournemouth, they started the season slowly, but in fairness, they have a new manager come in, new technique, new style, and they also had a really tough opening to the season. In the last month, they've got their act together. They pressed really, really well, and that's a classic Iraola team. It's what he did over in Spain, and he's sort of getting it together here. I think the Newcastle game a couple of weeks ago when they won 2-0, I watched that, and Newcastle couldn't deal with them at all. Nick Pope had to make countless big saves in that game, just as Emi Martinez did today. So I think Bournemouth, as they're getting their act together now, they really didn't let us settle. They put us, constantly under a high press. I think in the end, given the results they might be about to get, because they look like they're coming into form, that might actually turn around and look like a really good result away there, even though I do think we struggled to control the game. At times it was a little bit, there were moments where it reminded me of the Forest game, moments where it reminded me of the Liverpool game, struggling to play out. And then sometimes when they sat deeper, we just couldn't find any way through in that final third. But I think if we are pushing for, if we're dreaming of top 4 or even top 5 this season, if that's how it ends up with Champions League, the lack of control away from home at times in the midfield, getting a little bit overwhelmed at times, I think that's a slight problem, and that might stop you getting into that Champions League place if that's what we're dreaming of, But like I say, absolutely wild game, and second one, not for the first time this season away from home. It's difficult to get control in against these away sides, and one that I'm sure Emery's absolutely thinking about, like, how do we get this control?
Yeah, and that's something that we need to fix pretty sharpish. You know,
Yeah.
you don't the Premier League doesn't let up, does it? I know we've got 2 home games now in the next week, but they're going to be really difficult when you're back on the road again and you're into the second half of the season. The games start to pile up with Europe and whatnot. You can't be going away from home and conceding goals in the first 10 minutes or so every week. Everything you prepared for is instantly out the window. You're right in a sense that I think that will look like a good result. Not that Bournemouth are going to fly up into the top half and be European contenders or anything, but I don't think, they shouldn't really be in relegation trouble. I actually think there's some decent players that Bournemouth have, and they've certainly improved. When we did our pre-season preview, we had Bournemouth in the bottom 3, me, John, and James, I think, and I think most people had Bournemouth to go down, and I don't think that will happen. I think they're good enough to stay up, so I think that will look like a pretty decent result given. Obviously, of course, the context of what Villa do in the next few weeks. If we go on a bit of a losing streak, then obviously it's not a great result. But in hindsight, I think it might turn out to be that. Let's just talk about the VAR one, because as much as it's, you lose that control and you concede early on, or I suppose 10 minutes is early, isn't it? Although in Villa's terms, we've conceded earlier, let's put it that way. We come back into it pretty quickly with Bailey's goal, which again was a brilliant goal, a great finish, a real kind of confident player, someone that we've spoken about recently on the podcast quite a bit. Leon Bailey's having a pretty good season now.
He is,
Great finish. I'll let you talk about that in a second. Then we go and take the lead through Diego Carlos 2 minutes afterwards or whatever, and it's ruled out through VAR. I think Luca Dean was the player that they judged to be offside in the build-up. I'm of the mindset, I've said this before, and I will feel the same way. Villa benefit from this, I'm sure, because these things happen in football, that you benefit from some and you lose out on others. If it's taking that long to work it out and they look level, it's onside. Just stick with the on-field decision.
Yeah, it's just screaming out for semi-automated offsides, isn't it? Basically, it's just because it's taking so long. It's the same with the Tottenham game last week as well with Ollie Watkins. To be honest, the Watkins one, there was one angle where you'd think, well, maybe there's a toenail. Then there was another angle where it was like, I think he's onside.
We thought that, like flipping the other side of the ground. Like from one angle to the other. So it actually looks onside from that side. Yeah, we said exactly the same last week.
And then the same again today. It was that angle. It didn't look like. To me, it didn't look like a very obvious offside, and I think because it took so long and it wasn't clear and obvious, I think it probably should have been given as a goal, even though at times we're going to benefit from similar decisions. But I think I do think it should have been a goal. And just before that, that came from Semenyo's foul, the pullback, and that should have been a second yellow really as well. So that's 2 decisions in a minute that kind of went against us, and then that long VAR break. I think Villa had actually controlled the game quite well up to that exact point, and then we seemed to just not quite react well to it, and I think Bournemouth came really into it after that.
Yeah, another manager spoke about this last week, possibly about injuries. I think players getting cold basically after standing around for 3 or 4 minutes for a VAR break and coming back after that and being a little bit rusty almost. I almost feel the same, not from an injury perspective, but like concentration, that you're just kind of standing around for 3 or 4 minutes waiting. Have we scored? Have we not? Have we conceded? Have we not? And you've got to kind of like, if the decision is reversed and it goes back to the goalkeeper and they kick off again, it's like, okay, Christ, where are we? Like, and I feel like you lose a bit of that concentration. That's difficult for players to deal with. So whatever iteration of VAR they stick with or wipe it out or whatever they do, I think they are going to stick with it. They've got to change it in some respects. That waiting for 2, 3, 4 minutes on things that look really tight. You've either got to, like you say, bring in some kind of automation to it, or let the referee on the pitch referee the game, what they're there to do. Like this kind of like bottling, putting your flag up because our VAR will deal with it and they'll check it. No, make a decision, and whatever it is, we'll stick with that. If it's too tight to call, or the angle doesn't look quite right, or we can't draw the lines on, and all these different things. Frustrating in the end, things like that. Also, as you said, Semenyo should have had the second yellow. I think I called him Semedo earlier on, thinking of the Wolves defender. Again, just a bit of consistency, please, from referees. Like if that shirt pull happens before he's even booked, it's 100% a yellow card every single time. You do that 100 times, you get booked every single time. This kind of mindset of like, oh, he's already been booked, it's only 20 minutes in, I can't give him another second yellow and send him off. Why can't you? Like, let's talk about like, oh, referees ruin the game by sending people off. They're ruining the game anyway. Like if someone commits 2 fouls that are worthy of a yellow card each, you should be sent off. And again, this will benefit Villa in some instances where we'll get lucky and someone will stay on the pitch when they probably should have gone.
Yeah.
But in this instance, it's gone against us. And that, again, those little things change the game. If they're down to 10 after 20 minutes, I think Villa go on and win the game.
Yeah, I think so as well. And it was an incredibly stupid thing for Semenyo to do, pulling him back, and it just was a yellow card offence, and that should have been the second booking, and he should have been off. And it sort of reminds me of the League Cup final 2010, I think, was it, when Agbonlahor was through, taken down, he didn't send him off, Vidic. So yeah, it was it definitely a second yellow.
The comment here from Matt, who says, I know it annoys people to use the word unsustainable, but it is unsustainable to keep playing like this away from home. We concede so many chances and so many bad goals. Yeah, we talked about the goal conceding early, but the manner of the goal, Diego Carlos was so sloppy with the pass, trying to play it out to McGinn, who's not the on ball anyway. Really frustrating. Do you agree with that from Matt, that it's unsustainable? Have things got to change?
I think it is unsustainable. It is unsustainable, because if you have such a lack of control away from home all the time and it's so wild, it's just you're constantly going into games not sure what's going to happen, and you just are going to keep conceding. It's a consistent theme with Villa away from home at the moment. All the way back to Newcastle, Liverpool, Forest, we keep conceding early. Within 10 minutes again today. And the more frustrating aspect of that was that I think Villa actually started quite well. I thought we were quite composed, quite in control. First minute or two, Bournemouth, rattled us a bit, but we'd settled into the game pretty well, I thought, and looked like, okay, this is on today. And then to just give them a goal as simple as that. I mean, again, it's like away from home, once again having to come back and climb the mountain to fight away into it. And it's just it is going to cost you in time, because if you keep conceding early, if you can't settle because the press is so high against these opposition teams in the first 20 minutes, if the opposition fan base is louder, you are just going to keep conceding, and eventually there's going to be enough games where we can't find our way back into it, like what happened at Forest, for instance, and today just did it by the skin of our teeth. So I think if you want to be a top four team, you have to be more controlled away from home.
Two quick comments on this. DJ says the possession-based game does not work away from home. Once the ball's turned over, we're in trouble. We need to be more direct and peg them back. We're always looking for the perfect opportunity, which is something I agree with, actually. There's times where I think we're playing one too many pass here. We're trying to score the perfect goal where something different needs to be done sometimes. You need to change up what you're doing so you're not so predictable. And Dream Villain says, we can't rely on our home form to keep us in contention for top four. Something has to change away from home. This is something John spoke about in a couple of weeks ago, that everyone who gets up into the top four, their home form is very good, because you've got to have that base yourself. Liverpool have won 90 games out of 100 at Anfield, or whatever the stupid stats are, where you just think, Christ, that just seems mental. But then Villa do start to do something similar, of winning 13, 12 in a row, and look very good at home, and that is the basis that you need. But those teams then don't get battered at Newcastle, battered at Anfield, lose to Forest, draw at Bournemouth. Like, you have got to have moments where you just grind something out of nowhere. Clean sheet, maybe once in a while, might help. Even just getting a 0-0 or a 0-1, to always be conceding and do that, especially as we said so early on. Everything you've prepared in the week is out the window. They're onto you. The crowd gets up for it. Just the whole state of the game changes with an early goal, and it's starting to become that it's not in Villa's favour, which is something we were good at last year. We did get the early goal in games and set up to go on to win pretty much every time we scored early. Now we're conceding early, and like you said, climbing the mountain and making it difficult for us. But as Alfie says, 8 games in December, rotation is inevitable. And I think that's the same for everybody. You'll see some weird results over the next month or so where teams you expect to win don't. It's not the case, but Liverpool beat Fulham 4-3 this afternoon thanks to 2 late goals. I know they've won. That's obviously great because it's points for them. But I think you're going to see these results crop up over the winter period where you think, surprised they've dropped points there. And Villa will be one of those teams occasionally as well. And that's probably... if you don't look at the way the goals went today, people will look at Villa dropping points to Bournemouth and say, that's a bad result for them. But the context is it's actually a good result because we've come from behind twice and scored in the 90th minute. So some kind of character showing there, some kind of resilience. And as I said, 4 points out of Spurs and Bournemouth. If the results were flipped, I think we'd all go, pretty good, on to Man City.
Absolutely agree with that, and particularly with City and Arsenal coming up this week, it was just crucial we didn't lose. I think because if it ends up, who knows what happens this week, but if the results don't go in our favour, and if we'd lost today at Bournemouth, it's a mental block to get around that, isn't it? And I think away from home, just those early goals, we've got to stop conceding them.
Spurs winning against Man City already, by the way, as we're recording this.
Right, okay.
not ideal. Although it's ideal in some senses if Man City come into Villa Park on the back of a loss. Is that ideal? I don't think about that, actually.
The concept of Man City coming to Villa Park is never ideal, just knowing our history against them. But
I mentioned Bailey earlier in his goal, and I said, I'll let you talk through it, and I didn't because I glossed over it. Talk to me about that. He's in fine form so far, isn't he?
It was a brilliant goal, and I thought he was excellent today. I thought he was probably our best player, if I'm honest. In the first half, I feel for Zaniolo. Confidence isn't there.
It's
got a yellow card.
Him, is it?
Had to come off at half time. It just wasn't working for him at all. And I think a lot was breaking down with him in that final third, unfortunately for him. But with Bailey, it felt like every time the ball came to him as an outlet, he'd find a way of getting away from his man. He'd find a way of beating his man. He'd find a pass. And that's, with Leon Bailey, I think the question always was, can he find consistency? Because he'll have a fantastic 10 out of 10 game, like he did say when we beat Man United 3-1 last season. He was unplayable. But then he followed that up with a series of games where he wasn't great. He wasn't at it. So this season, though, he's found that consistency, and he's not just found it at home, he's also found it away. And today, he fully deserved his goal. And by the way, that came from Ollie Watkins coming deep, taking the ball, looking out, passing it out to him. So it's a Watkins assist as well. So, Watkins, who goal and assist shows the importance of him, doesn't it? Why we all were so glad to see him picked. But with Bailey, it just felt, I don't think Bournemouth were able to deal with him really today. For all the wildness of the game, I think he was like Villa's most consistent kind of, like every time he got it, you thought, I think he's going to do something. And more often than not, he actually did. Fully deserved that goal. And it was a really, really good take, cutting in on his left. Bournemouth shouldn't have let him do it, but he did it, took the opportunity. Great goal.
Mm-hmm. There's apparently Spurs is 1-1 now. So an ever-changing scenario as we're live. The comment here from John, we'll end on this, is flipping heck, lads, cheer up. We're doing tremendous. Any game in the Premier League is tough. A good point today in the circumstances. In Unai we trust.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that's what we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes, to be honest. I think that is a good point. I think we've played pretty well there. On another day, we win that game and we're talking about 6 points out of 6. It's just one of those ones that it's not worked out like that. I look at these games now against Man City and Arsenal, as much as we joke about it's never great with Man City turning up because they're the best team in the league and the best team in the world at the moment, or in Europe, with what they did last year. I'm not saying we're going to beat Man City, but I think out of Man City and Arsenal, by this time next week, I think we'll have picked up points or a point from one of those two games because we're so good at home. So this little period we're in at the moment, it's obviously not great to go to Bournemouth and not win because you think we're better than Bournemouth, but football doesn't work like that. I think over the next week or so, or the next couple of weeks, Villa will still be up and around the conversation of top 4, top 5. So if we are, we'll have picked up a couple of decent results against these top sides around us, and I genuinely think we're capable of that. Yeah,
and like I say, I think Bournemouth away is going to turn into a bit of an acid test for a few teams. They're very well coached by Iraola, who I think might, he's young, Basque Country, young manager coming from La Liga. Look at Unai Emery as somebody you might try and emulate in time. But don't underestimate, what a good result that. I don't think either of us underestimate what a result that was today. But with City and Arsenal coming up, I agree. I think we still will be in contention with top 5 in the next, by the end of December. And I think that City and Arsenal as well. I've seen with Arsenal some vulnerabilities. I think they start extremely well, but they tend to not be able to put games away too well. And I definitely think we can cause City and Arsenal problems. The way we play at home, our run of form, the way we've been going. I don't yet think Arsenal and City have hit full pelt. You're sort of expecting City particularly to just get to that point where they'll get a 3-0 win and suddenly 16 games later you're like, how have they just won 16 games in a row? What planet are these guys on? And so they haven't yet hit that stride just yet. Who knows how they'll do against Tottenham today? But definitely I think Wednesday night, packed out Villa Park. make it loud, make it difficult for them. And yeah, of course, City are going to cause us problems because they're an absolutely fantastic football team. But there's no reason to think Villa can't cause them problems as well, and there's no reason at all to think we can't come out of City and Arsenal believing that we can get some points out of those two games, as tough as they will be.
Yeah, even if you don't, there's still half a season left to
Exactly.
go and do what we want to do and finish up in the top four.
Yeah.
If I had to push you for a points total from those two games and put you on the spot, what would you go for? We'll talk about this in our Monday show tomorrow, no doubt, but you won't be on that. So Man City and Arsenal over this next week. This time next week, next Sunday, we'll play both. How many points will we have from them?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say 1. I'm going to say a draw. I think we might lose one of them. I think Arsenal 3 days after City is it's a big ask, that, isn't it? But I think we might just lose one of them, probably City. But I think Arsenal then will bounce back and get a result of some kind. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if we come away with 3 or 4 as well. That's the sort of level of confidence I have in Unai Emery in this team at the moment. I do think City, Emery's track record against Guardiola is not great. That seems to be the one hoodoo he personally has. If you look at the head-to-head, it's not good. But that has to end at some time, and maybe it could end this Wednesday. The way we're playing, the confidence we've got. Like I say, there's no reason we can't do something. But I think if I was to do in my head, my cynical head, I think a draw and a loss probably. But would be surprised if we get a win as well.
Is 6 points impossible?
It's not. But I tell you what, everybody would sit up and take notice then, wouldn't they?
Oh yeah, we'd be top, I think.
It'd be absolutely unbelievable if we did it. And my God, what a statement it would be. I think there's City, Arsenal, and Liverpool this season, and then I think there's teams just behind that. I think they are the 3 far and away at the top. But I think if anybody gets 6 points of City and Arsenal within 3 days of each other, wow. And yeah, I'll dare to dream. I'll dare to believe. But I don't know. It's going to be tough if we do it. But if we do, I don't know. I'll have to think of some forfeit to celebrate in a good way. So yeah.
Well, quite a day there, Frankie. Thank you so much for joining me this Sunday evening to chat through Bournemouth 2, Villa 2. We'll be back with the Monday show tomorrow. Of course, is Monday. I don't know who's going to be on that with me yet, but we're going to do it as a Q&A. We'll obviously talk a little bit about Bournemouth as well in more detail. But if you've got a general question about Villa and the wider picture ahead, about Man City, about Arsenal upcoming, about the Europa Conference League, about transfers, whatever it is, if you want to ask us a silly question about what vegetables we have on our Christmas dinner or whatever nonsense, I'll challenge somebody to come up with a nonsense question. Get involved in the YouTube comments and we'll use some of those in tomorrow's recording on Monday. Thank you very much for watching this one. Thank you, Frankie, for joining me, and we'll see you all again tomorrow. Cheers, everyone.